Okay, so we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. Both of our stars are here, and we want to appreciate everyone that made it, despite the fact we know that there's a Denver Nuggets game. We still appreciate you being here. So in about 5 minutes, we're getting started.
It's like an event center, isn't it? Or a red car now, or something like that. Fancy red car. You put that in my messenger, didn't you?
Huh?
You put that in my messenger, didn't you?
Yes, I did. All right. If everybody could please take a seat, we're going to get ready to get started. Okay. Again, if you could take your seats, we're going to get started. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out, and I want to thank everyone in the virtual world for tuning in. Thank you for having patience. We had a little technical difficulties, but guess what? The show still goes on, and I am very much not only pleased, but blessed to have those that made it out tonight. There are a lot of things that have been going on, but here we are. Just to give you an idea, there are some new faces in here. When we start these shows, the main reason why we started having these conversations is because we had too many injustices in our community. Excuse me, hey y'all. Excuse me. Hi. Thank you. So we've had too many injustices in our community for dealing with prejudice, customers, and just individuals from racism, sexism, and above. And it doesn't make any sense because the queer community is a melting pot of all communities. So now it's time for us to really tackle the issue and figure out how we're going to move forward. And one of the best ways to move forward is to have conversations about this and hear different perspectives, but also learn and grow from it so we can be not only a better person, but a better ally to whoever we're around. I ask each and every one of you to come with an open mind. This is not a cancel culture place. I repeat, this is not a cancel culture place. Because at the end of the day, each one of us, we are different individuals, but we have certain similarities. So I ask everyone to help get centered for this, and I usually start off with a light meditation. So everybody, if you could, whether you close your eyes or not, I would like you all to take in a deep breath and hold. And as you release your breath, release all the negative energy that has been built and pent up in you all week. Take in another deep breath. and whole. And as you release this one, set your intentions. What are your intentions for the show and after? And release. Take in one more deep breath. Hold. And as you release this last breath, be open to love and all forms. And release. The dream. We spent years listening to our predecessors talk about the dream of us being able to live freely. We currently live in a state to where we are able to do things that our grandparents were not able to do. They helped pave the way for each and every one of us to even be present in this room. Whether you are Black, white, Asian, Latinx, male, female, trans, it doesn't matter. Without our ancestors, without our grandparents, without anyone that has struggled, we wouldn't be here. And today is also the spring equinox. So happy spring equinox, everyone. I realize that a lot of people don't understand our history in America. And with these conversations, before we continue on, you have to learn a little bit about your history. And so this month happened to be women's history. A lot of people don't understand the history in America. And of course, good old American school systems, not the teacher's fault, but the designer of the school system, failed to make sure that each and every one of us actually gets a proper education and know our history. Without knowing your history, you are doomed and bound to repeat it. And so as we are looking around us, we are starting to repeat the history. We are starting to repeat people being prejudiced and racist towards others. We are starting to repeat the sexism that has been going around. And tonight's topic is talking about, what is a woman? We live in a time now to where the definition of a woman has evolved. Because back when our grandparents and our great-grandparents were alive, there was limitations on who you can be as an individual. And they were the ones that fought so we could be our own individual selves. So again, think as you listen, what defines a woman to you? What do pronouns mean? Because before 2018, most of us didn't even know what pronouns meant except for English class. So what do pronouns mean to you? What does it mean to another individual? And how can you educate other people to understand the power of pronouns for other individuals? And at the same time, those that use pronouns, how you can show grace towards those who don't necessarily use pronouns. Again, you have to understand it is 2022 and pronouns just came around 2018. There are people who have gone their entire lives not ever using pronouns. This is new. And grace is needed to be shown to those who might not get a full understanding or grasp on what pronouns are and how it helps people in their life. Because each one of us comes from different walks of life. And dealing with sexism, one of the harshest realities is that there's a lot of sexism in the queer community. Why is that? And that's not even just coming from male counterparts, it's coming from female counterparts. It's coming from even non-binary people. Why is that? These are questions that you need to start asking yourself so we can address and move forward. So tonight, I have brought back two incredible people who not only will talk about their views, but answer questions and engage in conversations with you all. So do not be afraid. If you have a question, ask it. If you have something you need to say it. How else are we going to learn and grow and evolve as a people if we don't understand each other? So without further ado, I would love to introduce Indy the Weirdo and Crystal Towers. These two individuals are extremely amazing to me. I love what they do out in the community, and I love the heart that they have. And I love that they want to see the community grow and mend, because too many people have been hurt throughout the years. And a lot of us don't understand what has caused this hurt. Misguided education, these long, and I mean long, war on drugs, because we've never really had a break, and a lot of people have come from broken situations due to drugs. It's not, and for society to put it on just queer members when that is not even the case. I just learned something new this week off of a show that I watched, but it also reminded me of when the opioid crisis started. That's been going on for over 20 years. What was before the opioid crisis? Crack cocaine. We never had a break in America to mend. We had the HIV/AIDS crisis. Again, we never had a chance to mend and heal, and now is that opportunity. So that our future generation can live happier, but still make sure that everybody can be free. And we no longer have to start worrying about government putting laws for our own bodies. We never have to start worrying about people judging you for the color of your skin or how you identify as an individual. Again, some of this may hit home. Some of this may be triggering. And if it is triggering, I encourage anyone, please seek a counsel. Seek mental health, and it's okay. Mental health is important. And as we move forward, it is time for us to tackle our mental health. So my first question to my panel that's up here, well, my stars, and I'm going to be moving out the way. I just like to get everything going and get the vibe going. I want to know, and if you're comfortable, what defines a woman to you?
Why you let me go first? Define a woman? Yes, I don't know. I can't answer that. Define a woman. I mean, it's just a creation of a different sex. I can't define a woman. I can't really think of anything like that.
To me, I'm not even 100% sure if it can be, defined into such a simplistic thing, because there are so many women. It has nothing to do with how you identify what's in your pants, as the kids like to say today. But I think I have just the question is, can it be defined into one?
Yeah. A woman.
Yeah.
Now, biblical way is the woman is supposed to be, the women are supposed to be the blessings of the earth. They're supposed to provide offspring, and they're supposed to teach other women to be as being a good example as how to be another woman. You understand what I'm saying? But mostly they were supposed to be the fruit of the earth, or the earth provider bearing children and multiplying.
And thank you for your answer, Lindsay. So if hearing both sides, when I look at it, and this is also coming from a scientific point of view on this, because I grew up trying to figure that out, like what defines a woman, what defines a man, what is feminine energy, masculine energy. It's all been intertwined, unfortunately, because of what we've been programmed to think. And it always made me question exactly, should we even use just man or woman? Because to me, I feel like sometimes it could be, defining if you're a woman or man could be psychological. And the reason why I say that is because when I was in high school, I watched this show. I used to love watching the TLC before it became whatever it became. But there was this one documentary that I watched that talked about how a person's sexuality was defined as far as whether they were male or female. And they brought up this topic on how there was something in our brains that would dictate who you, well, not dictate, it really showed who you were as far as masculine or feminine energy, not just based off our biological makeup. So then, as time has gone on, I've accepted people for who they are because I possess masculine energy and feminine energy, but I still identify as a woman. I do not judge those who are non-binary or they identify as male but were born biologically as a woman, because it's a lot more complex than we allow ourselves to believe it to be. And eventually, that's something that we can talk more in the future. But this will be a two-part series. So if you have more questions tonight, make sure you develop some questions for our next conversation next month.
So non-binary to me, what is that to me? What is that?
Would anyone in the audience like to explain a little more on non-binary? Anybody? Do we have any non-binary people in there?
Any non-binary presenting people in the audience?
Anybody? I don't know what the non-binary is.
You have one on your panel.
All right. So explain to us.
Well, explain what it is
I
that
got you. To me, and it's. I want to first start off by saying it's not just those who go by they, that they don't equate, which is often, misconstrued. But I view myself as more androgynous than non-binary. I would also call myself a woman. That's where we go into what is a woman and be non-binary and a woman at the same time, and but pronouns are she, them. So I am comfortable being referred to as they, them, or she, her, or both, just not he, him. That's just not me. And I wanted to tackle on what you said earlier about it being a psychological thing. To me, it's also very much more as a spiritual, energetic thing of how you, again, still feel in your mind, feel in your heart, feel in your soul. It's truly up to said person and, their own soul and energy. I just truly don't know if it can be defined as one set textbook, set in stone thing.
So would anybody in the audience, do you have any questions about what's being said or comments or thoughts on it? Yeah, come on up here. Come on up here.
Come on, baby.
Okay.
Don't be shy.
Okay. Hi, my name is Bree. So I identify as. Go for it.
Sit down.
Thank you.
Sit right to drink, girl. Oh, you have company.
Yeah.
Okay.
I identify as queer. And when I think about non-binary, and when I think about my gender identity, for me, it's more about a kind of place that you are in your life. So as a queer person, I believe that gender is on a spectrum. And as you grow up, and for me, I was called like a tomboy a lot. I'm gonna look at like the etymology of the term tomboy. It's quite ironic. But then maybe I will gravitate to maybe a different school of thought or theology or philosophy, and I'll find myself personally sliding on that scale. Now it happens very slowly and incrementally, day by day, week by week, year by year. But at any point, I could be anywhere on that spectrum. And it's not necessarily something that's set in stone. It's something that happens and evolves over time.
Anybody else would like to come up and give their input or thoughts about this? Like, the whole point of these conversations is to talk and engage. You do not have to feel afraid. No one is here to judge, and no one is going to cancel anything. That is not what this is about.
I don't mean to be stupid or anything. I don't mean to, for someone my age, when you guys speak of this binary and being queer and all these categories, you slipping yourselves in categories, and it's confusing to a lot of people. And sometimes I wonder, where do you guys get these categories that you put yourself in? Where do you get these thoughts? Or do you guys just sit on the end of the bed and say, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that? I mean, I don't understand it. Because what in the olden days for you, for what I mean by this is, in the olden days, if I was in the community, what we would describe you as a lesbian or as a woman, but you'll be more considered as, it depended on your dress or how you presented yourself. As a masculine, you were butch. If you were feminine, you were lipstick. So, that's where I come from. But when you guys get to go and I'm binary, queer / you know what I'm saying? Then it's kind of like, well, what the hell? I'm just saying as an older person. I don't want nobody to be offended by what I'm saying. You see what I'm... Because when you speak to some of us old folks, we're kind of like, what the hell are you talking about?
All right.
Now, don't come up here and read, girl, because you was rocking kind of stiff, honey. You was walking kind of stiff. You should have brought your drink up here so we can see like we friends.
Oh boy. Okay. So I was actually going to side with you on a few things.
Okay.
Just because I was raised by a Southern woman from Arkansas, and when I was growing up, she used to be like, "Oh, I love that you're a little lady, such a little lady. It's incredible." And as I got older, I started to I don't know. I joined the Navy, and I found a little bit of a more masculine side for me. But at the same time, when people would be like, "Hey, what are your pronouns?" I found it offensive. I was like, I look like a lady. Just because, I do sit-ups and push-ups every morning doesn't mean I'm a lady. I'm not a lady, There's no masculine traits for me here. But, as I've gotten to know through the LGBTQ plus Rainbow Mafia, people's comfort in what they choose to be called themselves. It's kind of a thing where I had to stop and be like, well, what do I see myself as? And I will tell you that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, she's real femme, she's this, she's that. And after a while, I was like, I see myself as Fola. That's my name, and there is no femme, there's no STEM, there's no she, there's them, you know what I mean? I just see myself how I see myself. And people just choose what they want to be. And like you said, do they sit on the corner of their bed and go, I'm gonna be this today? In a way they do, because it's the way you choose to see yourself. And if you want other people to see you that way, then that's fine. But for me, it just got so complicated that I was like, hey, I identify as me. That's how I identify. So,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm a Navy veteran as well, and the Rainbow Mafia is real.
Oh yeah. Yeah, girl.
It's just, even when everybody just said, buy, or you buy that you were curious, or you liked both things, you liked both things, male or female. So, but now it's just going, I don't know which way you want to go. So I got you on that. I got you. Okay.
Because I have, how can I be up there?
But I do must say this though, in a black family, and especially in a religious family, we were raised as men, or young men had to represent as being men, and women had to be represented as women. And I could understand the oppression of that. Because when you grow, when you're growing in the church, or when you're growing, you start to get those feelings and all of that other stuff. You get kind of confused, of who you want to be and stuff. So, but it's just the black families, they always stick that in you, and you're going to hell. You're going to hell. Or you're not less than what, they think.
It's okay. I just tell my mama I vacation there.
Oh.
That's a good one.
I don't say that. I don't say that. I say, I still am a strong believer that we're in God's image. So. Come on, sis, we waiting on you to come up here. Y'all don't like sharing chairs?
No, I'm like out in the middle.
Y'all scared of COVID, honey. Y'all scared to share chairs now, honey.
Yeah, shoot, I'm not good about it. Okay, well, I can kind of see things kind of both ways. I look at it on the outside looking in, but also within myself, because feeling like I'm of kind of an older generation, I don't really fully understand the whole pronouns and everything like that. Same, because I grew up like the tomboy. But I knew I was very feminine, but I was also very masculine. But I knew I was a woman. Don't call me no man, I'm pretty. You know what I'm saying? But I will bench press you. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. But it was really hard for me to try to see, okay, well, am I supposed to be thinking like this? I don't, but I have an 11-year-old who's trying to figure herself out. So she starts at like, okay, I think I'm bi. But now she's met someone that she kind of likes, but she's a girl going as a he. And there's also pansexual, right?
Are they trans or are they?
My
sexuality can be fluid.
Well, okay, because she's
Sexuality that-
but that's when we just had a talk. So I was just trying to figure it out. And she's like, I've been questioning my sexuality, and I'm really big on therapy. So she talks to her therapist about this a lot. And we try to pick up from wherever they're at, or they pick up from wherever we at. And after her therapist appointment on Friday, she had said that she was talking to her about that, and she thinks she may be pan. And the only reason why I think that's why she's saying that, because her crush, her like best friend, that they're both crushing on each other, and they know they can't do anything. So, they they can't like be in like a couple or anything like that. But her crush is a female. But she goes by he. I'm so sorry. See, but that's the thing. I try not to offend, and it's never, but I feel like I'm always offending my children, and then because I don't know what to call, I don't know what to say to them, and I say like, okay, then they ask me what my pronouns is. I know I'm very masculine, and I know I'm very feminine, so I'm like, well, she, they. But I still like, call me a he, but I can, so I don't know how, what I'm saying? Like, he is not there right now, like, I can say that about me, but I think I still, because I know what I came here as, I came here as a female. I know what my body parts are, and I'm not saying that it's, you're wrong for saying that you're something else when you were born this way, but I was raised in the church. I'm really, so maybe that's part of why I'm like, I'm a woman. I'm not.
If you go by name, you don't have to be one. If you go by name, Just because you go by they doesn't mean you are not. That is just something that you would like for somebody to maybe, throw it in there, call it to you, but that does not take away your womanhood whatsoever.
Right, I just don't, I'm okay with they, but not,
Right.
so yeah, I'm just like, just
So
if you wanna say that, just say
there
that,
you go.
but it's not.
And it's the same way for these little kids who say, hey, I wanna go by him. That's what they wanna go by. They might change it later. I used to think I was bi. Every lesbian, they're like, maybe, and then you're like, okay, no, I hate it. Anyway, sorry. Well, maybe not everybody,
Is that when you were in school?
yeah, it was when I was in middle school. I was like, oh, I could be bi. Just because being a lesbian wasn't like weird. You have to like still at least like boys. And then I got to high school and I was like, definitely not. But
Well, see,
sorry. As a kid, I would love for my parents to be like, hey, you're questioning your sexuality. That's cool. What would you like, to be referred to by? I probably still would have said she. That's just me. That doesn't mean any other kid is invalid for saying, I know I was born a woman, but I want my pronouns to be he, him. And so I feel like that's just very important as a child. If that's what that child is even bringing up to you, then that's just important. And they might change it, they might not, but it's just, as the way you feel about, I don't want to be called no he. They probably don't want to be called no she,
Right,
So,
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
so
we just
yeah.
gotta be cautious because, kids are very, fragile.
I try to say they most of the time, or,
If you
just ask, like, yeah, because that's not weird, why are you being respectful?
Okay.
But do you think 11 years old? Do you think 11 is kind of young to discuss those kind of? I don't know. I have no children.
Oh, yeah, no,
I have no children. I have no children, so I don't know.
I can take this back now. You want-
Because I didn't hear about the boys and the birds and the bees until I was 15.
Okay, so how many times?
Are we that prehistoric?
You didn't learn about it, but did you see it? Did you hear it? Did you guys experience that? Was that something that you still were exposed to at a younger age?
Well, I mean, at 11, our age like that, we was playing spin the bottle. We didn't,
Well, okay, so what, from my experience,
But when we got to high school, that's when we started to notice the change of having more of an attraction to the opposite sex.
well, in my experience, you were at that age, I can say at a very young age, from 6, 7, older cousins was already doing stuff to us younger cousins. And not even that, not even in my generation, the older generation, they were doing things to the younger ones that, if you look, there is study that shows young women, because this is something that I've learned, that young women, they learn to mess with themselves and they have their first orgasm around the age of 5. So if that is when we're exploring our bodies, now young boys too. Yeah, okay, so you're already getting the sensation. You know it's what you're getting an orgasm as a young child, and then you have these movies. I remember was it Soul Food? We saw, we watched with our parents, and they said turn your head. My eyes were looking. Okay, honey, I don't know what it is. Mine too. So we were exposed. We saw that, like I said, as a young child, 6, 7. I had an older female cousin hump me. You know what I'm saying? And this is what was going on. And the parents wasn't talking about it. So here I am at 33 with an 11-year-old. I'm going to talk to you about this. I know there were friends who tricked me into stuff like that. I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to talk to you, girl. And my 6-year-old knows where babies come from. They come from the male sac.
But usually 9 times out of 10, when you said that your family member with your cousin humped you or whatever, more than likely your parents have to experience the same thing too.
They did or they did not.
They did.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
It's generational curse.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So if they experience that, this is where my disconnect is, because I experienced
But
it.
there was some things back in them days you could not say.
Right, you could talk. Why would you allow your child? So because you knew that you were molested or touched or messed with, and all of those sleepovers with all your cousins,
Right.
our grandparents, all of them. They knew this happened to them. You don't forget this. But you are forced to make yourself believe that that didn't happen, or push it way back in your subconscious and then pretend it's not happening to your child when it's actually happening.
True.
And you know it's happening.
Get the opinion in the bud.
You know,
I got you.
and so at 11, like I said, my 6-year-old knows. You know, she knows that the male carries the sperm, and the sperm goes into the woman, and that is how you get impregnated. You know,
You just teach them at a younger age than I'm telling you, we didn't learn about sex until we got to junior high, high school. So I got you.
And I know y'all got.
Come on,
I'm just saying.
I heard y'all back there. Come on up.
I just want to say one more thing. For me, being lesbian as a younger child should not have been sexualized. Just because I felt my queerness doesn't mean I'm engaging in sex. Okay, I just knew that when I saw a man and a woman kiss, I kind of went, you know, or I saw a boy and he was like, "Do you want to go out?" And I was like, you know, I wasn't touching in my experience, because I know things happen to people, and I'm not going to even try and speak on that because I was very fortunate to not have anything like that happen to me. But it does happen, but as a child, I wasn't rubbing on myself at 5, you know, like I wasn't doing that. But when I started hearing about, you know, like the one girl said she liked girls, and I was like, that's a thing, you know? And I was like, I might be like that, you know? So that was exciting for me, but it didn't need to be sexualized, because the frustrating thing for me is when people see a gay couple on a cartoon and they're like, and the straight person's like, why are you pushing the agenda? You're going to make the kid gay. I saw so much straightness, and I am a whole lesbian. So that's not even how that shit works. So we just really need to stop sexualizing these kids, because it makes me feel some type of way when, you know, just because a kid is queer doesn't mean they're having, you know, sexual encounters and stuff like that. They're just simply queer. Oh, you're in. I'm sorry.
And speaking of agendas, please support local small businesses that sell planners. I like to stay organized. I have no visceral reaction to agendas. So just to put that out there. I just want to make a comment on generational trauma. And when we look at the transatlantic slave trade, and I'm being approximate, of course, there were about 400,000 enslaved Africans that were brought to the United States. Of the entire slave trade, which is obviously far more than 400,000, only 10% of those enslaved Africans came to North America. So this is excluding, you know, not necessarily Mexico, but Central America, South America, Caribbean, etc. So when you look at how far the slave trade reached, it reached as far as Asia, it reached as far as the Philippines. And, you know, when I was in the Navy, I got to see so much, and I got to see so much wealth, and I also got to see a lot of poverty. And it really makes you grateful for what you have here and the freedoms that you have here in the United States. But when you look at that number going from 400,000 in about the late 1700s, you know, during the so-called birth of our nation, and you look at that number jumping to about 4 million by the end of the Civil War. That's a lot of forced labor, childbirth, labor, rape, suffering, labor. And there's a lot that we have to repair in our communities. And I don't just mean within the Black community, I mean within our neighborhoods. That's going to take time. For me, what I do is I rest. I sleep a lot. I sleep unapologetically. I believe that sleep heals generational trauma. It's how I connect with my creator, and it's how I prepare for the inevitable, which is the big sleep. And regardless of how you identify, we're all going to take that final rest someday. So I just want to encourage rest, and I want to encourage healing, and I want to encourage the fact that, when we talk about trauma and rape and molestation, we're talking about our grandmothers and our great grandmothers and their mothers too. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that is true, and, like, this was also stating about, generational curse. Just a little bit of background for me, like, I was, taught by my parents to love me for who I am. So my first crush was a female. I was, 6, 7 years old. And I never thought that there was anything wrong with liking a female, because that's what I felt. And I was never sexualized. I knew at a young age what sex was. My parents taught us that. And I can't sit up here and say that everybody's parents taught them that. But the first time I ever felt sexualized was when I started the 6th grade. And I developed quicker than a lot of the females in my class. I had my period at 11, and at the same time, I wasn't looking to have sex, but I understood what sex was. And I got sexualized, and it wasn't in a physical way, it was more a mental way, because my teacher pulled me aside and told me that I couldn't wear the spandex type pants anymore because worrying on sexualizing the male students. And I'm like, well, I don't even have an interest in them. I prefer women. And at the same time, I'm not even there thinking about having sex with anyone. But right then and there, it was embedded to me that if I wear these clothes, then I am promoting sex. And I'm like 11 years old. And I have that understanding of what it is, but that is not my mentality. And every day, sometimes I wish someone would be like, hey, it's okay to wear what you want to wear. You're not going to be sexualized. And a lot of people aren't even, a lot of people, how should I say this, can't chastise you for just being yourself and being developed at an early age. And the thing is I didn't have sex in middle school at all, but there were a lot of people, and some of them who presented themselves as straight, which come to find out, a lot of them are gay now, but they were having sex because that's what they were told that they were supposed to do when you start hitting puberty. And that brings on more confusion, and it also brings on more STDs, or definitely trauma. Because some people are in their heads think that this is what we're supposed to do because this is what society is telling me to do. And one thing I'm looking at now when we're bringing these subjects out, and you were asking, is 11 too young? I don't think it's too young to talk about it, because I wish someone would have said, hey, you know what? I know you're not sexualizing, but let me explain to you what some people go through. And that's what I wish would have happened that very moment when my teacher said that to me, instead of making me feel ashamed for who I was. And I think that could change a lot of people's mental state too when we address it in a different way and actually not shame that person. Especially some people are high sexual individuals. Some people are not high sexual individuals. But don't shame either one. And so I just think it is important, because the truth is, raise your hand if you ever played house. Exactly. We were all in elementary school playing house, and I didn't want to.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
And
I can't play. I wanted to be the mama all the time. Yes, honey. I wanted to be mama.
I was not the mom that one day.
So knowing that when we were kids, we had that concept, we had the understanding, but we were limited on who we could be because of a certain standard that was put upon us. So it is healthy for our kids, and then we need to start giving kids a lot more credit. Kids are smarter than people presume them to be. And
I think it's different. The kids are more different now than we were, because we went outside when we was forced to be outside. So that's how we knew all the kids' neighborhoods. But nowadays, these electronics have taken over the minds of these kids to where they're not going out and adventuring and discovering more about themselves or about others. So I feel we're being more sheltered in right now, especially with this COVID, that even made it even worse. So, because they was talking about that on TV this morning, about our social skills have changed and the way we interact with people has changed. So if they keep that in mind too, we'll just say that.
I definitely will. Anybody, I saw a couple of hands back there. Come on up here. I see you.
Come on, Sissy. I've been waiting on you. Come on. See, this you going up here, baby. Sister, she was like, whoa, shit, she getting ready to fight.
I think that when we talk about generational things, we have to look at it like, so every generation goes through its changes, and I think that our generation understands that we can't compare ourselves to the last one. And all the generations, everything gets more complicated. Just the fact that we can have an alphabet mafia says that socially we are getting more accepted. So that socially people can change their pronouns. 20 years ago, nobody even thought they could change their pronouns because they couldn't even change their gender, because they couldn't even be who they was, because they couldn't even be black, because they couldn't even, you know what I'm saying? There's all these other things. So now I feel like just the fact that it's so confusing for the older generation, they should look at it as, let me take the time to understand what this new world is. This new world is way more accepting, way more honest with themselves, way more able to just look at themselves and really see who they are and be like, shit, I'm gonna change everything the woman was. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's a blessing.
But sometimes you got to take heed of the history and learn from the history, because that history is the one that brought us this far.
Exactly. It brought us this far, so we're gonna take that history and we're gonna keep going. We're gonna take the fact that we couldn't, do all this stuff just because we black. And now we're gonna take it step further and be like, okay, I'm black and I'm gay. I'm black and I'm a him. I'm black and I'm a them. I'm black, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we can take the history, know what we've been, and be like, okay, we can take that shit a step further. And I feel like the older generation wants to put us like, y'all should be okay with just being gay. You know, we fought so hard to just be gay. Be okay with just being gay. And it's like, nah. So I feel like it's really just like taking a step further. If they told y'all back then that no was not acceptable, no, it's acceptable for us.
There you go. Yes, I like that. Oh, yeah.
That was too forceful.
You know me?
It felt like it was directing that comment to me. I am offended. Yeah, come on, baby.
Anybody else? I saw another hand back there. DJ, you look like you have something you need to say. Come on over. See, this is why we have these conversations, because sometimes we like to hide in the corner because we've been doing that a lot in our lives. So now is a chance to come to the light and express what you feel. It's okay.
I think I just teeter on a couple different sides.
Come to the living room, honey. Sit on down.
Okay, so I say have grace with our elders, right? Due to the fact that does anybody view like this is, I'm not coming for you, okay? I'm just gonna say that, right? Their mindset, right? They're only allowed to think so much because they were only allowed to think so much, right? So how can they see where we're coming from if they were never allotted that space? That wasn't a free space that was given to you. So you don't even know that the space that we're in today even exists. Right?
Possible or normal or just, available.
Yes, right. So like you said, take it, elevate, next level, right? That should be something that's considered too, because how many of us are taking the time to teach them, to educate them, right? Because that makes us more inclusive also, right? It gives us more support from our elders, yes? But also, I don't know her name, I'm so sorry, but like she said, like you were saying, is 11 years old an appropriate time to have a conversation with your little people, right? So thinking about where we're going tomorrow, right? I think that at 11 years of age, I was a lot more in tune with what was going on in life than my parents gave me credit for, right? I was so awake, I was so alert. If you're comfortable with having that conversation with your person, it's probably based off of observation, right? You're seeing that, okay, well, my daughter's a little more in tune with herself than I was aware of. So now you have to take the time as your child's parent, your child's guide, the head of your household, right? Whatever that looks like for them, to teach them, you know what I mean? To give them a free space to be comfortable with who they are also. You know what I'm trying to say? So I think that it goes both ways. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not just like one side versus the other. Like, we're all dealing with, and I heard somebody say this earlier too, the exact same issues, the exact same struggles, but how are we trying to bridge the gap between us firsthand? Because yeah, like we could say, yeah, this is what we're getting from outside, right? But yeah, it starts here. Yes, it starts here. So
My kids can teach me every day.
yeah,
Because
they're awake. They're so awake.
They're
It's 6
so
at 5. They're
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And I'm able to teach my parents. It's lovely.
Nice. I love how we're all willing to learn things, and one thing I do appreciate what you're saying is, it goes both ways. We do have to bridge that gap, like, we don't know how it, but we have an idea, but we weren't there to experience exactly what the older generation had to deal with. And it can put up walls, because even I have walls, because of what I dealt with. So a lot of the older generation, this is what I'm talking about again with that word grace. We have to start giving each other grace. Like, don't just base what you read off of Google, because that's not always 100% true. If someone is telling you something, it's because they experienced it back in their days. So acknowledge it, accept it, and learn how to mend that broken and old bridge, period. Especially when it comes to this generation gap. It's very noticeable. Like, and it doesn't make any sense, but even the younger generation, y'all, you have an opportunity to deal with less oppression. And that's a beautiful thing. We still oppress, but I can really imagine with you and folks that are even older than you have to deal with. And now that we live with people that are being born into less oppression, you're chastising people that dealt with the oppression to create space for you not to have oppression.
Right.
So, what are you going to do about that? How are you going to confront that and mend it at
You
this
love
point?
them unconditionally. Because a lot of times they're going to see how they see things. Like my grandma, she's never going to get how I am. She just never will. But I still show her the utmost respect. I don't go in there, I'm not gonna sage in her house because she does not believe in that. I'm gonna say my grace and I'm gonna say thank you, Jesus, even though I may not look at it like that. But I'm showing her grace, but then she is okay with me meditating. So I step outside, I'll meditate. She'll see me do yoga. She still sees me being me and sees how balanced I am, while respecting who she is. So then every once in a while I can say something, I can drop a jewel or something, and she hears me. But the fact that I'm impatient and I'm not looking at her, oh, you judge me, so I'm gonna judge you. Oh, you always on me, so you never gonna get me. No, I treat it with now, because I was like that, but now I treat it with patience and love, unconditional love, because that's all she gave me my whole life. That's all I ever did, was take care of us and love us.
Without the religion.
Huh?
Without the religion.
Yes.
I think that's another thing that a lot of Black families don't, that they forget their religion, or they feel that that the younger generation is being witch doctored, or as the old folks used to say, is you have a reprobated mind.
I've never heard of that.
You never heard of that? Oh, yes. If you feel, maybe a lot of the church older folks, if you don't feel if you're not this way, or you feel like you're swaying either ways, you have a reprobated mind.
So God take you from his presence. Technically, you with the devil now. That's what that means. Like, when you choose to be gay, that's your choice. So God now says, you no longer belong to me. You chose the devil over me, and I'm gonna give that over to you.
Or you're living, a reprobated mind is that you don't know your left from your right, your right from your left.
You're confused. Yeah.
You're confused.
Which is the devil, the author of confusion.
Okay, I learned something new. So I will also say, like, when I witnessed a lot of Black families that were in the church. I did not grow up in the church. My mom was raised Catholic, my dad was raised Pentecostal, and they said they'd rather us find our,
What kind of what? That just don't mix, honey.
It was some interesting conversations in the family, but even my parents, they seeked and sought what their spirituality was and encouraged us to do the same thing. And so, like, it wasn't until we got to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where a lot of things were like mind-blowing and it changed, because I didn't realize how super religious some people were. Like, there was a church in every corner in Tennessee. Like, you can go to the gas station. Next to the gas station, there was Bojangles, and then there was First Zion Missionary Baptist Church on the hill. Like, there was churches everywhere. But I chose to allow myself to immerse and understand what spirituality is versus religion, because it's two separate things. We can go all night, and I realize that the time is starting to get late. So
when you get older, you start to find more of yourself of that.
That's true.
You start to find more of who, if you believe in God or if you don't believe in God, your spirit will start to speak more into or evolve into what you want to be.
I have a question for my fellow Black spiritual folks who are in tune with your ancestors. As we're talking about generational trauma and, how your grandma might not appreciate some of the things that you're doing, or maybe we might butt heads, would there ever be like an issue trying to reconnect with ancestors that don't approve of the way you're living right now?
Ancestors? Who are ancestors?
Those who died.
Those are, you say your grandparents?
Or, are the people who got cousins.
Way in the back. Back in the day. I'm sorry, I cut you off, baby girl. I love you. No, I cut you off. I was like, really? I know they called your grandmother an ancestor. You are calling your grandmother an ancestor?
So there's this great book out, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this shout out, but it's a very key book. It's called Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. You should Yaa Gyasi, so it's YAA, and the last name is, I think it's NGAI. I probably spelled that incorrectly. But it's called Homegoing, and it talks about these sisters who were separated, and one was sold into slavery and eventually came to the United States and all of her siblings, and one stayed in West Africa. Person is had to fight for independence from Britain and everything that happened in West Africa, the Congo, East Africa, South Africa, pretty much all of sub-Saharan Africa. So that's a great book to read. I don't think that our ancestors would be, what was the word you used? Wouldn't want to connect with us?
Not that they wouldn't connect, but like obviously, like you might have some issues if you're, growing up in the church, your great grandma, whatever,
It's like,
I
oh, you're a
think I think this ties into grace, right? Like you woke up this morning. Remember our grandparents and great aunts used to always say, I woke up this morning. Because who woke up this morning? You woke up this morning. So yeah, I mean, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever it is that gives you spiritual help, whatever affirms that you have a mind, will, and emotions, that's what you gravitate to. Because that's what makes you feel full, that's what gives you a sense of fulfillment. And like I said, you woke up this morning. So until that day stops, and whoever is in control of that, so until that stops, you keep doing you. Period. It's so, and so Stu's like,
I'm not
blocking
saying
your
that,
shot. No.
I'm not saying that they're gonna support you because I hear whatever I'm saying is they're gonna be like, I don't know too much about it, I don't know too much about it, but I'm just saying that obviously that's where you're still on your traumas, differences.
That all takes time and healing. But trust that there's healing at the end of this. Yeah, and look towards the healing. Don't ruminate on the past and the hurt. Keep going forward. Keep looking at that light at the end of the tunnel, that fulfillment, that goodness. Hold on to that and keep choosing that on the journey. Going on the journey. No, I was just like,
That sounds like your ancestors, sounds like your grandmother.
So I will say this, and I feel like it's important that I even mention this and bring this up. Especially when we come talking about ancestors and spirituality. So last year, a lot of you know that I was in the hospital, I was in a coma and everything due to COVID. And, you know, it took me a while because I felt like people would think I would be crazy for even saying this, but then I had to realize it when I said this is, how can I be crazy when I was the one that actually not only experienced it, but I was literally on a different realm of life because I was pretty much almost completely was no longer here. You know, I stopped breathing. I was no longer just on the physical plane anymore. I was in another realm, and I call this my divine intervention because it was I saw my future. I saw what I was supposed to do. I got an opportunity to listen and speak to the divine one and those that were my predecessors, telling me exactly who I could be, what I could be, and not to give up on it. And so what I will say is, when you leave this body, the other one doesn't care about what you were in this body. The other realm, that energy is transferred from the body to another realm, and they are not going to sit up here and judge you for your sexuality, for being black or being white, because your physical state has completely changed. So while we have been programmed to think a certain way, I encourage you to, if whatever type of meditation works for you, accept and realize that what we've been taught is not necessarily true. And I say that because I have gotten to experience what most people won't experience until they actually leave this earth. You know that saying, YOLO, you only live once? I got to live twice. So with that, I got to see truth. And it took me a while to accept that this is truth because I was worried about people calling me crazy. But then I had to realize, how can you call me crazy when you never even died and came back? So they won't be mad, they won't judge you. You have the free will. You're given free will. What are you going to do with it to help humanity at the end of the day? Are you going to help humanity grow, or are you going to help humanity suffer? That is the eternal battle. As we get closer to wrapping this up, we can go on for hours talking about this, but it's getting late. Some of us have a 9 to 5 to go to tomorrow. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here and expressing your views and thoughts and just talking in general. It's not an easy conversation to talk about. But I also want to thank some people that have come up and supported the community in ways that some others couldn't do it. I have a few nonprofits. I think Denver Health has already left, but they will be around again. Denver Health came to give free HIV and STD tests today, and they'll be back next month. But I also wanted to recognize a couple of organizations who did come and show your support and learn more about these organizations, because these are the organizations that are mending and building and re-healing our communities. I would first like to give a special thanks to Healthy Denver Inc. Stand up for us real quick. At this end of the show, usually I have people talk, but we are running behind. You'll get to talk, have more to say next month, I promise that. But get information from these two. They are here to help in their communities in several ways. And you can do your part by helping the community by getting to know more about these nonprofits that are around. Our next nonprofit, and such a wonderful individual, Jazz with Music. But whether we want to admit it or not, when we start helping our youth first, then we can help others, because our youth, they soak up everything, knowledge, everything, and if we help guide them now, who they become as an adult will be beautiful. Well, this is our time to start healing. So, now, and our last nonprofit, which a lot of people do not know, I have Liz today. So, a lot of you know that I am starting a business in cannabis delivery, but also I see the importance of helping and in the community. By the divineness, I was connected with an incredible individual who's here, and they are the executive director of the initiative. And recently, I've taken a position as the director of communications and outreach for the initiative. And the initiative focuses on people with disabilities in domestic violence relationships. But we do not limit ourselves. We want to help people who have been in those situations. Because sometimes the signs, they're there, but we don't necessarily know. So then this program is going to help us we're trying to end that abuse culture. It is time to end it. And with that being said, the initiative, actually, thank you very much for showing. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, because this is how we start looking things. We've seen too many of our friends, especially in the queer community, they don't want to talk about that. But there have been a lot of people in domestic violence relationships, even in the queer community. This is the beginning of how we can tackle it and start to change things. So, before we close out, there is one person that I would like to bring up to the stage, and they're also our performer tonight. Rose Summy. Is there a Rose Summy in the building? Yeah. Could you please take a seat right here? So I want to introduce someone who I think is a phenomenal individual. We met years ago at the Art Institute before it closed. And when I first encountered them and I listened to some of their music, and I was like, heart. She has heart. And I appreciate her. And I wanted to take the time before closing out and letting her perform. You talking about what inspires you, the things that inspires you to do these very songs that you're going to perform after we close out. And just tell us who you are.
I'm Summer Janelle, also known as Rose Summy. I'm a rap hip hop artist. I think what inspires me to keep doing music is just getting my message out as far as who I am, and I don't know, the life that's been put in front of me and the things that I've experienced, and be able to share that with you all. And I'm sure a lot of people can like relate to that. So I think it's just getting the message out, really. That's what inspires me, and being better, you know, being really dope, you know.
Thank you. Yeah. And so, let's give a round of applause one more time to, our stars nearly of India Widow and Sour.
Thank you guys. You guys are amazing.
So,
You better shake your city, baby, and I'm gonna get up off here and let you get your ready.
so as we get prepared, I'm gonna close this out real quick, and then we're gonna listen to the beautiful styles of Rose Summit. So, we learned a lot today, and with learning is growth. So I encourage each and every one of you tonight to go home and think on how we can continue evolving these conversations and evolving people in general, so we can mend these broken bridges and broken hearts. So we're almost done, ladies. We're about to close out real quick. No, you're okay. So when we close out, we usually do just a closeout meditation. It's important to center yourself again. So I'm asking everyone in here, if you can close your eyes. If you don't like to close it, that's okay. But please take in a deep breath and hold. And as you release what your intentions will be for the next one. Breathe out. Breathe in one more time. And hold. And as you hold this, how will you find ways to love yourself more? That way you can love others. Release. Take in one last breath. Hold it. And as you release this one, tell yourself you love you. And we can fix this world for our future. And release. Thank you for coming. Please enjoy Rose of the Summer.
All right, so this first song that I'm gonna perform is called Here We Go Again. I wrote this actually right around this time from last year. And I decided to, on this record, to really address some of the things that bothered me about like coming out to my family and dealing with that unacceptance. A lot of what you guys brought up today is actually something I've dealt with my entire life, as far as growing up in Christian religion and then being told to suppress yourself because that's not godly. So I pretty much addressed the pain and agony, and so this one's called Here We Go Again. Oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. I'm not happy with me, not happy at all. I guess this is what it's like when you fall. A never-ending pit of consumption. I need repentance, a love, a sense of me expressing need for the things I see you was me to be. I feel like I need too much pressure or anything like that. We want to believe what we see in the movies and sit to dream and keep on the trip away and never come back again. Don't know where my conscience went. It makes me wonder about it when you would. I really choose this life, it's already hard when the family's in denial and wanna fight. And sometimes I don't know what side of the fence that I be on. I just wanna focus, sleep on the side I'm usually on. Can you not be mad? Can you not be sad? Can you not be glad for the baby steps that I'm taking inside of my life again? But find my way, but please do not rush me. Cause here we go again, and I'll be gone before you love me. Oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. It's taken me a long time to be comfortable in my skin. Not looking for no sympathy in my suffering. I didn't judge you when you told me that you loved him. What's the difference of love is loving? You know when you hold them. Just sick of the hypocrisy. I still believe in God and know just what he's loving me. It's the same with faith and you gotta. I never said this publicly, you might just burn me at the stake and curse me like it's blasphemy, but really it's actually, can't have this conversation with the ones that I love, I'll just put it in the song, I hope one day we get along, and you can see my point of view, not asking you to change it, or at least what I'm going through. Your unacceptance is doing more damage than it is fixing it. My biggest fear is seeing when you call, I might decline your shit, and things don't be happy. You told me that, so I'm asking think twice before you judge me. This way we go again, and I'll be gone over. You love me, yeah. Woo. Oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Thank you guys. I got one more song. I just figured I'd do this one for fun, so this one's called Anywhere.
If you can go anywhere with me, and what you got or what you see.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere.
Here we go. Yeah. If I can go to anywhere, it'd probably be to Africa to say what's up to all my people and talk to my ancestors. Or maybe go to Germany and learn about the heritage. Try to understand why Jews were different from the areas. Grew up without seeing what the world is actually like. So sometimes I feel sheltered, but feel free as a kite. And other times my vision filled with memories of my life. A pain of rage I'm gonna save, a rapper save my life. I'm on fire, I'm gonna take this higher. My desire is the Christian retire. What an empire, so I build it higher. I'm Messiah, I listen, it's fire, yeah. I'm trying to go all over the world, y'all. Anywhere, anytime, any place. Yeah. Girl, one day when I get rich, I'm taking you to France. You always wanna go, I promise in advance. We gon' see the city lights, hit the city hella bright. Drink one in the after hours, secret sauce inside the shower. First kiss at the Eiffel Tower, wake you up to shoot you how I'm supposed to go. Just make me go to world of hours. I'm like Austin Powers, taking back for so many hours. I'm like Austin Powers, can't you feel my fucking powers? Use on fire, I can take you higher. My desire is ice, but you never tire. We'll climb higher, I want it more higher. But you by my side, I need you like a tire. Yeah. Yeah, where would you go? What would you see? Thank you guys so much, I appreciate y'all. This was a really great conversation, and I really needed it. After this, I'm gonna go get some mental health.
Thank you, give it up for Rose Summer. I hope you all have a good night. Please be safe, getting home, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Girl,